Welcome back, everybody, to Total Nonstop Impact Throwback Edition, featured right here on the OG channel. This is Trent along my co-host, Jaybone. Jaybone, say hello to the people.
What is up, everyone? How you folks doing tonight?
Hey, Bone, we are back. Throwback series, a TNI throwback. We're here to review NWA TNA number 2, which took place on June 26, 2002. J-Bone, that was 17 years ago. Good Lord, where were you? Where were you in June of 2002, J-Bone? Throw something out there. You can even make up something at this point. We can't prove you wrong.
Oh, God, chasing my little girls around, you know. They're not little girls anymore.
Naughty boy, J-Bone. Naughty boy.
No. I'm talking about my daughters.
Oh, his daughters. Okay. We didn't. Well, listen. We don't. I've heard things about you, Jay. But I heard you were a player. Basically, you were Kyle before Kyle. You know.
Oh, I was. I was back in the day. Yes, I was quite the scumbag. But I have. Let's just say I have retired my scumbag prime card.
You know, I want you to find that card and put it on the back wall next to you on the north. Or give it to Kyle.
It would probably look something similar to this.
Mrs. J-Mo has been known to watch. We got to be careful what we say around here.
Yeah.
Well, we want to say hello to a few people. Like I said, we go late night. This is the OG channel. We're building the OG channel. Thank you to the new subscribers. We got some new subscribers last week on this channel as a result of this show. Guys, thank you for jumping on, joining us here. We appreciate that. Mir Neeson is upset that we took a while. Mir, I'm telling you, I have to start a Patreon or something to start up a new, to get a new computer. My computer, is acting. I don't know what's wrong with this thing. I don't know what's happening to it. It's acting funny. No idea what's going on. Hakeem Fullerton, what's happening? So, guys, we're here. June 26, 2002, NWA TNA number 2, J-Bone. I watched this live as it happened. You just watched it for the first time today. Am I correct?
Yes. Yeah. And,
interesting.
Like I said last week, I've watched, let me silence this just to make sure. Okay. I have watched the first pay-per-view a few times over the years and then, fresh again last week, but I have never seen 2 through, however many, the next 2 years of pay-per-views that they did these. So this was all completely fresh and new to me. We had the previews, of course, as far as what they announced, but that was it. So this was all completely new to me. And this was just, oh my goodness.
It's interesting to put yourself back, 17 years in wrestling might as well be a lifetime. A lot of changes, but man,
yeah.
Couple of prelim thoughts before we jump into the whole thing. I love how innocent and lively wrestling crowds were back then. No stupid chants, no unnecessary joking. It was just people reacting to what they saw in the ring. Yeah. Cheers, boos. It was so cool to see people frenzy over just things they're seeing in the ring. I miss that. I truly miss that.
There's a lot of knucklehead stuff going on in the background if you watch it back a couple times, but it was still a completely different crowd. There were still goofy signs.
Sure,
probably more signs a few years prior in wrestling crowds, but yeah, man, just this crowd. And now they double taped, right?
Yes.
They taped this right after the first episode, if I'm understanding that correctly.
Yeah, it's a long day. Both were taped on June 19th. This aired the next week. So you notice towards the end of the show, there's some emptying seats out because you're talking a late night. Eric DeHoff, what's going on? And we want to thank Eric DeHoff again for his Christmas gifts to all of us. We appreciate that.
Yes, his generosity, yes.
Very much so. As you can notice, towards the end of the show, some seats are clearing out. But it's a long night for these people. I think they started the first tape, at 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, early day, and it went late. I mean, you're taping 2 episodes of the of NWA TNA. So it was a lot for these people to swallow, but they gave them a lot too in terms of like two big events, the world title and the X Division title. You know, there's a lot going on there. So
that X Division title,
incredible.
My goodness,
That match still holds up, man.
I'm glad they put that on last because I'm not gonna lie, this event didn't start out tremendous. It's like there were some definite highs and lows at this. You know, I mean, I've watched a lot of wrestling in my lifetime, and I was really excited for this, but I'd say about the first half hour ish into this, I was a little nervous. I'm not gonna lie.
Let's jump into that at the beginning. Since you mentioned it, let's go right in. Let's use that as our gateway here, Jay. Opened up with Jeff Jarrett and Scott Hall. We got Jackie Fargo and Toby Keith.
Oh, I forgot my toothpick.
Oh, you're gonna do a toothpick gimmick. See, you messed up, Jay.
I love the tooth. I love Scott Hall. I've always been a big fan of his.
You gotta love Scott Hall. You gotta love.
You know, this is back when he was still in decent shape. This is right after his exit from WWE, and this is probably right after. I was guessing it was like right after his match with Stone Cold, but I don't think that timeline is correct. But,
I was trying to remember.
I'd have to look it up to see what year he did what.
Yeah.
Who and then left.
Well, he looked great though. Either way, I think he looked phenomenal.
I mean, I know he was in. It was like this is still the time period in where he was still. We'll just say hurting himself. It's just.
yeah. It was a rough period for the guy. He wants, but here,
physically he looked good.
He looked great. He looked great here. This, no doubt about it. Scott Hall looked phenomenal here. Keep in mind, these guys had a pretty big feud in the WWF back in the day. So these guys were no strangers to each other, Jay. They were pretty familiar with one another. It was you saw that. They worked that TV style because they've worked TV together countless times.
Oh,
so, very smooth match. They knew their highs, their lows. It was fun. It was your standard. Like I said, I had seen that match, 100 times in my lifetime, watching those two go at it. And again, like I said, no strangers to one another, but still fun to see. About a 7-minute match. You had Toby Keith get involved, and they did like a little interference. They gave him a double stroke, and Scott Hall beats Jeff Jarrett in about 7 minutes. So fun match. You still had Toby Keith in the building because of his doing the stuff the week before. So it was not, I guess it was like, hey, well, we got him. Let's use him.
Yeah.
At the time, I remember, people have to remember Toby Keith was a huge name at the time in music. It was a big deal.
He was, and he looked. I'm not gonna lie. He did look a little. I don't know, sheepish out there.
A little bit.
He was a little lost, but obviously he was not privy to. I mean, he's used to being out in front of a crowd, but not being the focus in the crowd in a different way at that kind of event.
Sure.
So that's what he's not. So I'll give him that as far as like, well, he looks like he doesn't know what the hell he's doing. Well, that's because he's not used to being
out of the world.
He probably had his notes as far as what was going on and whatever, and that's fine. It was just kind of funny, just kind of like looking at him, like replaying a couple sections and just like watching him
for sure
watch the match and how he was reacting to certain things. It's like, it's funny.
It's fun. The guy has played for hundreds and thousands of people at a time.
Right.
But you put him in front of a couple thousand in a wrestling arena, and he looks scared. You're right, because it's not his world. It was not his world, and he was stepping into a place that wasn't his world. And you could see like how wrestling will rattle you sometimes. Mir Neeson is saying he's going to be at the Hall of Fame to see Scott Hall going. Very nice.
That is pretty cool. That is pretty cool. And I know different people have their opinions on Hogan and whatever over the years. And, we're not going to discuss that. But that's, if you're an NWO fan, that's pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie. I wouldn't mind being in attendance for that. That would be. I would say that's too sweet.
It's kind of just to quickly sidebar on that. The names they're putting in. It's weird. You don't like the Big Show should be in as a member of the NWO. He was one of the first members in. DiBiase was the next man in. He should have been in.
Well, yeah, he was like their manager.
He was their manager in the beginning. He was the fourth man. That was DiBiase.
And what about Bischoff?
Bischoff should go in. I'm telling you, Show should go in.
Is like the guy who like made the band, isn't he?
I know. It's a little screwy. Typical WWE. It's they're cherry picking who goes in. It's never a smooth thing. Kill Steel mentions the band, which is what they were known as in TNA. So
yeah, that was crazy.
Favorite member of the NWO, Hakeem Fullerton's asking me, is Randy Savage. If Randy Savage is anywhere, he is my favorite anywhere of anything, no doubt. And Jay's wearing a Randy Savage t-shirt. So I'm wearing a Beatdown Clan t-shirt. Look at that. That's not nice. early days TNA, but it's definitely earlier Impact Wrestling. But well, cool. Let's keep going here. So one thing I'd like to point out is I want to give credit to the announcing. I miss Mike Tenay. Not that I don't like Josh Matthews and Don Callis, but man, Mike Tenay and Don West,
man,
pure excitement. Like the excitement that they announce with, like they're into everything.
It's so funny to hear Don West, and I think I commented on this last week. It's so funny, and I'll probably say this every episode till you start noticing certain changes.
Yeah.
It's so funny to hear Don West at the desk just react to stuff.
Exactly. And I love that.
And it's more of a fan thing.
Yep.
And it's less Professor Tenay. Like you're gonna hear Tenay react certain ways to certain things, but he's gonna keep that Tenay tone. Whereas Don West sounds like he's just drooling and losing his mind at certain things, which is so funny. And then you've got Ed Ferreira, like, what the hell is the matter with you, West? It's like
now Ed didn't stay long on commentary, and we'll get to that. But man, Don, Don is us. He was never remember. Keep in mind with Don West, he had no prior announcing experience. He was I think he did the Home Shopping Network before. That's what he was. It was over. He did the late night infomercials.
He was like a hype guy. Yeah,
he was a hype guy. But man, he's infectious. The Don West energy is fucking infectious, man. It really, really.
Probably had about 10 of these before. Were these even around?
They weren't even around. They didn't even need them. And so it's really cool, man. And they're so into it, those two. I love it. I absolutely love it. We go from that great opener to a real fun, strange match.
Oh, my God.
Cheex taking on.
Now, you mentioned Cheex last week, and I was like, who the hell is – like I said, there's so many new names here. And there's a lot of, WCW, independent, and WWF classic guys in this. And then you've got guys like Cheex. Why do they call him? Holy shit, I get it.
Now, Cheex is essentially a nobody. Okay, let's not mince words here. The guy wasn't anything.
No, but he was something. I mean,
Jesus. I mean, this guy was, I don't know what, it looked like it had its own world going on down there,
Oh,
unbelievable. Cheex is the guy, to refresh everybody's memory. He had the dark match on show number 1, which broke the ring mere moments before they went on the air. So that was tough, man. So Cheex is known for the guy who almost killed the pay-per-view before it even started.
I now understand why.
It's a big boy. That's a large man. Cheex is a large man. He fought Frank Parker. I'd seen Frank Parker was a journeyman kind of guy. Didn't do a whole lot, but Cheex took him out pretty easily. You know, it was the ass spot. It was like the fat guy spot. You know, that's what it was.
Yeah.
And I think people didn't want that. You know, people didn't want to see it after seeing a nice opener. I mean, you had a hot opener with two big name TV guys.
Oh yeah.
It's like, do we really want to see this? You know, I don't think we want to see this. But they gave it to us. That's for damn sure.
I love this spot on commentary. I don't remember who said what, but they had the T.O. joke about how Cheex was backstage, you know, telling T.O. to get in my belly. I popped on that one. I was like, oh hell no.
Definitely a very Ed Ferrara thing to say. That was Ed Ferrara.
Cheex is eating midgets backstage. Lord have mercy.
It's a big man, dude. Big man. You had Brian Christopher, Grandmaster Sexay, for anybody who didn't know, from the WWF. He was they kicked off this feud the week before with K Crush, I think they called him, which was, you know, Ron the Truth Killings, who ended up having a really nice run in NWA TNA, who is he's back to Ron Killings now, right, Jay, in WWF?
He's our truth.
Our truth, okay.
Our truth, Ron Killings, but our truth.
Okay.
Yeah.
They had, again, two guys who had some
52-time 24/7 champ, I believe now.
And he's also, how old is he? Like nearly 50 years old?
He's in tremendous shape. I'll give him that.
Exactly the fucking same on this pay-per-view than he does now. The guy does not age.
Yeah, he's aged well. Like the only thing that I ever heard, like you could say like negative as far as a vice of him over the years. I think much later they talked about him quitting smoking during later episodes of TNA. I remember the promos, and but geez, he's taking care of himself. Yeah, I mean,
unbelievable how this guy stays in incredible shape. He looked great. I mean, he looked like he was chiseled from stone, man. This guy, incredible. I could see, like, you see him, and you could see why he always had a job in wrestling. He looks like a star. Looks like $1 million.
He does.
You know?
I was just gonna say, it looks like $1 million. Absolutely.
And we're gonna get to. He was the first Black world champion, NWA world champion. And that's, we're going to get to that down the line, but keep that in mind. Like, it's not celebrated enough even today. I think, you know, that's something I think that should be, because that was huge at the time. It was very huge when it happened. Absolutely. Hakeem Fullerton saying people forget how serious of a competitor Ron Killings is. Absolutely. He's a good dude too, man. He does a lot of charity work. He does rapping. And this guy is a very, very talented dude, man. Extremely good at what he does. Anyway, so he took on Brian Christopher. Christopher had Hermie Sadler and Sterling Marlin in his corner with him. This was a very catering to the NASCAR Alabama audience. Jay, what do you a NASCAR guy, Jay?
I've watched some over the years, because when I first got together with Tracy, which is almost 10 years ago now, she was a huge NASCAR fan.
Really? Okay.
And I was more the NFL wrestling guy, and I don't watch any NFL now. I watch it in passing. That's about it.
Yeah.
But and so I became a bit of a NASCAR fan over the years. I watched some stuff with Tracy and became a fan of Joey Logano. That's who I was trying to think of a couple of weeks ago. Was one of the guys. That's one of her favorites. And now she doesn't watch it at all. I don't know why she strayed away from it, but whatever. That's, you know. But yeah, so I recognize Hermie's name for whatever reason, but
Hermie, they kept around for years. Our old school listeners who are in the chat now might remember this. They kept Hermie and Dixie were like super close, and like Hermie stuck around forever. They even had they had a car that was TNA Wrestling stock car and everything. So I mean, there was some involvement in the racing world. I mean, Hermie was their guy for a long time.
Yeah.
So there was always a relationship with between stock car and TNA for a long time. But it was your standard, you know, baby face heel dynamic, you know, and you had your your live crowd really feeding into it. But they loved Christopher. They hated Ron Young. It's this perfect heel face dynamic. But the guys got involved, helped out a little bit, helped screw K Crush a little bit on this one, and Brian Christopher got the win. So standard, again, we're building to the X Division match, so you're not getting a ton. There wasn't even a ton of promos on this one. Did you notice that? Like backstage, there wasn't a ton of stuff on this one.
No,
one segment.
There was very little. It was the tag team thing, and I think that's about it.
We'll get to it, but that was it though. Like show one had a lot more sidebars and stuff like that. So, and I think a part of it, Jay, is this was a long night. This was the double taping on one night.
Oh yeah.
Have you ever been to a long tape? I think what MLW said was a long day, right?
MLW, yeah, that was the total top to bottom was about between 5 hours.
That's a long day.
Between 5 to 6 hours. It was not 6. Between 4 to 5 hours. Yeah, that was long.
And you get tired. I mean, that's what you're dealing with here on these shows. I mean, you can't give the crowd too much because if you look at these timings, Cheex match was 2 minutes. The opener was 7 minutes. The K Crush, Brian Christopher, 4.5 minutes. You can't go too long because you got a long ass match at the end to build up to.
Oh yeah. I think the funniest thing is going into this match.
Yeah,
when they were talking about Hermie Sadler before the match actually started. If you counted how many times they called Hermie Sadler a little twerp, if you had a shot for every time they called Hermie Sadler a little twerp, you'd be drunk by the end of the match.
No,
oh my God, there was. I know. I picked the little weird things out.
That's good.
That's
why I got you here.
But that was. Yeah, I'm like, how about was that like a rib on him? It's like, I'm sure some people wanted to bring him in, and I'm sure some people looked at the racing guys like, why are they here? So that might have been a rib on them at the same time. That's a guess, but
look at it from my point of view, Jay. Me and my buddy Dave were watching this, and we don't know who Hermie Sadler is. We didn't watch that. I mean, we're in Chicago. I mean, NASCAR. We don't watch it.
If you're a Midwest guy and you're not a racing guy, yeah, exactly.
We have no idea who this guy was.
Hermie's walking around in his t-shirt and cargo pants, and just he's the whitest guy there, legit. It's like
it had to be something that totally for that crowd, and I mean it's Alabama, right? That's what they do. They love their NASCAR.
Alabama. Oh yeah, dude. I've been down south a couple times, and man, race NASCAR is like
gospel.
It's lifeblood. Yeah, oh yeah, I get it.
The next one was the lingerie battle royal for the crown Miss TNA. Now, this is something that was very big in these days, but now you're never going to get this now. Which I personally think there's a huge audience that still wants this, but they're never going to do this now, man. But JV, what's going on? I want to say hello. Also, a couple people. Kill Steel's in the room. Hakeem Fullerton, Mir Neeson. Who else is over here? Who else we got?
Psycho
Sid Bones. All right. Yes. Sid, we're going to get to 3LK and BG James and Cole. We'll get to all that. The intentions to do all these.
I loved 3LK, man. That's my when that was really big, just about 2 years down the road. That was my shit, dude.
3 Live Crew was great. There's even a 3 Live Crew DVD, which I got over there. But I'm still gonna do the collection video. I am still gonna do it. I have a ton of time off coming up from work, holidays. I'm gonna do the collection video. Don't you guys worry. But anyway, all right, let's keep going on here. So, Miss TNA Lingerie Battle Royal, J participants: Alexis Lurie, Electra, Aaron, Francine, Joni, Miss Sasha, Shannon, who was Daphne, Tyler, and Taylor Vaughn. Alexis Lurie was, as we know, is Mickey James. Yes. Aaron, who the hell was Aaron? I did not know who Aaron and Miss Sasha. I think they were locals.
Any of these blonde, they announced. Let's see, and it was so awkward too because Jeremy Borash announced one of the girls.
Yeah, he was messing up all over the place.
And then he announced, who's the ECW?
Francine.
Yeah, he announced Francine, and then he didn't announce any of the others. They like left it up to commentary to say who was coming out, and the cameras were all over the place. It was a hot mess.
It was a mess. I think he announced the wrong person first, and then he announced the second one wrong, and I think he just gave up, and he's like, I think my order's all screwed. Yeah. So then he decided to just forget it and let them do it.
They left it up to the camera work, and
I didn't like that. I said, my thought was, you see them walking down, you still announce them. What are you doing? So you should still be. You're watching them walk down.
He was a crazy hot mess all throughout this. And we'll get to that.
He was a young guy though at the time, very young JB.
Very.
This was your bra and panties match. This is a very timepiece bra and panties match. Look, the people now are the fans now hate this stuff, but I'm like, look, I don't mind it. I mean, shit, I had a huge thing for Francine when I was watching ECW in high school. She was hot. Yeah, so to see Francine and Electra stripped down, you were like, hey, I wasn't complaining.
Like, and I'm watching this now, and I see Francine on her YouTube channel, and like on social media here and there, and I watched this, and I'm like, this is going to sound incredibly chauvinistic. I don't see why people were popping for Francine. Okay, that's just me.
Yeah, I'll tell you why. I'll tell you exactly why.
I mean, I get it that she dressed sleazy and she showed skin and stuff like that, but I haven't seen a ton of ECW footage, so I'll let you tell me why.
Francine was that chick who could take a power bomb, give a power bomb, go through a table, right?
Okay.
Still be a badass, hang with the guys, had a killer body to make every guy still wake right up in that room and kick your ass. But then that behind the scenes, man, if you ever had a minute with Francine, to be the best 60 seconds of your life is what Francine was. Trust me, being a 16-year-old in 1997, Francine peak 97, 98, man. Every one of us was into Francine.
I understand. All right.
Because she's hardcore, man. She was hardcore. But she's a total sweetheart. That's what funny they came out of it all. She was like not slutty in real life. She was like total sweetheart. She's a mom. Like she's really into being a mom. Like was never like sleeping around with the boys. Like she was extremely on the up, like she was really, really cool.
Gotcha.
So, but she knew how to play her character, man. She was, but Taylor Vaughn won this. It was a 4-minute thing. This was fast. And there was some Francine got in there. She beat down Ed Ferrara, who was being a sleaze. She was whipping Taylor Vaughn with the belt.
Yeah, he was trying to comfort her, and he reached around and he was grabbing her boobs. I was like, oh my God. Just knowing what today's standards are compared to almost 20 years ago. Oh my God. And then she clobbered him, and her stuff was falling off as she was clobbering him, and he was slipping in his leather pants and just looked like a total sleaze bag. And I don't know why she was acting like that. That was hilarious. But
it was funny. It was funny. Now, for those who don't know Ed Ferrara was the co-writer with Vince Russo. He was basically Russo's next guy. They wrote together. They're the ones who turned the WWF around at the time. Then they both went to WCW. Ed Ferrara, so Ed left the business shortly after this. Ed started off as a TV writer. He did like Duckman, the series, things like that. So he did a lot of TV. Ed Ferrara was a big TV writer at one time, and he was a professor, ended up being a TV professor at my college later on. So in Chicago, but now he's a professor at Full Sail University. Go figure. Things just work out really weird.
That's crazy.
The next match, Jay, Grant Apollo and David Young with hair. David Young was with Bobcat, who looked like an old Vegas showgirl. We watched up with Vegas showgirl, but Grant Apollo. Now, actually, I'm sorry. Let me rewind for a second. Before this, they were interviewing Goldilocks, interviewing Grand Apollo, and Bobcat interfered in this and said, you should be interviewing the real champion, this and that. So saying she should interviewing David Young.
Oh yeah.
And then Goldie cut it. She's like, no, this interview's done. So that's kind of now keep in mind something, guys. In those days, you remember everything was very polished, very scripted, like it is today. It was very TNA came in with the idea of like, let's try to like be a little more raw about things, for lack of a better term. Like you can have a announcer in the back go, cut this sucks, I'm not going on with this, I'm not interviewing you. Like that's something you never saw, but it was like a little more real. That was the idea, was to be like unconventional. They had chicks dancing in cages, later on they swore, things like that. Mir Neeson brings up about Ed Ferrara about the whole mocking of JR.
Yeah,
Oklahoma.
I remember that. Thing. Yeah, when he was mocking his palsy. Yeah,
that was bad.
Palsy,
real bad. They've buried the hatchet. They've settled everything. Russo's even been on JR's podcast. They're all boys. They've apologized for it. It was the one thing Russo says. It was the one thing I wish I could completely take back. And wish I never signed off on it. So it was a tough time at the time. Yeah. 99 was rough. It was a rough time. Lakers, if you like Goldilocks, she still has a podcast nowadays. It's on the Russo's brand network. So she's still around, man. Goldilocks is still around, touring with her band. She's doing her thing still. So you can check her out. She's called Goldie's Closet is her podcast. It's free. Goldie's Closet. Check it. It's on iTunes and everything. So so Grand Apollo, guys. Now, Jay, had you ever heard of Grand Apollo or David Young before I go on here?
Apollo was around TNA for a couple more years down the road into the FX time frame, and that was when I really became a fan. So that's you'll hear me compare. I'm like, oh, he was here, he was also down the road, and I remember him from then. That you're going to hear me doing a lot of that. But I loved Apollo. My biggest pop. Now I don't have a clue who David Young is. They talked about him a little bit. Bobcat. Bobcat. It just cracks me. She cracked me up throughout this whole thing. But I'm like, her name is Bobcat. I'm like, when I hear Bobcat, I think of the comedian Bobcat Goldthwait back from way. I'm showing my age here.
I don't know. I just watched
this show.
I just watched Scrooged with him in it. Him and Bill Murray. But yeah, he's great. I love Bob. That's what I think of too, though. Every time I hear Bobcat, I think of Bobcat Goldthwait.
So this is like complete 180. But I looked at Apollo during this, and I rewound a couple of segments. Dear God, what the hell? I rewound a couple segments while watching this. Just looking at his, this is gonna sound weird, but I'm looking at his physique and the way he did stuff in the ring. I was like, holy shit, we're in 2019 going into 2020, almost 20 years later.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the first coming of Brian Cage.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a really good comparison, man.
Watch this back, and as a current Impact Wrestling fan, you can't help but notice it's almost bizarre how similar he is to Brian Cage. I was like, oh my God, it made me miss him even more then.
Wow, that's a really good comparison, man. I love I thought he was just a star.
Like minus some of the lucha moves, because that's Brian knows for doing all sorts of crazy shit, but Apollo, like more the power guy, total athleticism, but yeah, strangely similar. I was like, oh my God.
I'd love to see those two square off. That'd be cool.
Oh, that might make like the universe like implode if they did that.
Yeah. David Young was a journeyman around the Southeast region for a long time. Stuck around throughout the Nashville days, the Asylum days and whatnot. He end up getting some more character. He's a solid hand. The guy can go. He reminds me a lot of an Arn Anderson type character. You know, he was very, very solid. He ended up getting this storyline where he was, and we'll get to it eventually, where he just is on like a massive losing streak. Like he gets so close, and he screws up, and he he just botches it at the end. You know, so it was a great little story that they ran with for David Young, man, for a long time. He I think he just got out of the business. You know, it never worked out. He just eventually called it a day. But Apollo wins this one. Moonsault, TKO, and pin is what he goes with. So, but keep your eye on David Young, because as we go on, David Young becomes a very important part of it. He's a very prominent player. He's there for a long time.
Sid Bourne says, wasn't Apollo early member of LAX?
He was. I believe he was. I don't
remember. That's really fuzzy. Like I remember early LAX, but
I think Apollo was early member. And I believe you're right, Sid. For some reason, I'm blanking on confirming that, but I believe you're right. The next one to me is a very, very special match because they're in the back and they go to the back and the Dubs are there.
Very, very controversial, but it's a timepiece in the history. Yeah.
Yes.
I know what you're getting to. Go ahead.
So the Rainbow Express are up next. Joel Gerdner, Class ECW, Joel Gerdner does one of his rhymes. And he's managing the Rainbow Express, Bruce and Lenny.
Yes.
Who are a gay tag team.
Uh-oh. Oh no. Did we lose him? Trent. Oh boy. All right. We'll bring him back in just a little bit. We'll bring him back. I'm getting all right, so technical difficulties. Just got the message from him. We'll bring him back uno momento. So I do not have the violins to play like like Scumbag does when someone drops out of the screen. So I'm just gonna mimic the violins and say we lost Trent. Yes, rest in peace, Trent. We'll get him back as soon as possible. Oh, I know he's gonna be pissed. I know he's cussing at himself right now. He's messaging me right now. He's got to plug in his PC. He'll be back in a second, but we will continue here. Hang in there, folks. We will continue. But yeah, wanted to talk about the controversy of this match. Yes, Jaybone. Jaybone flying solo, just like on Smash This podcast. Yes. So no, I'm certainly used to this. So all right, so hang in there, folks. He'll be back soon. We'll keep an eye out for him. So yeah, I wanted to talk about the controversy of this match. Number one, Joe Gertner talking about how he doesn't care what kind of lifestyle this tag team lives, whatever, whether they were actually playing the part or they were legit gay. That I could not tell you. I'd have to really dive into the old history books and see who was gay and who was actually playing a gay, similar to Goldust back in the day, where he was, all sassy and whatever. but yeah, it's and that was a bold statement, and that was especially a bold statement for where they were, because that is borderline down where they were. That was borderline the Bible Belt down there. Very conservative. There's NASCAR, and then there's God, and then there's family, and not necessarily all in that order, but that's where they were. So to throw this out there, and then, it's like to try to soften up the crowd with maybe a message from Joe, be like, oh, well, if we love Joe Gertner, so if he's okay with them, then we'll be okay with them, trying to get that across maybe. But yeah, so the Rainbow Express, Trent reminding me last week that Brucey was formerly Kiwi. I believe he was called Kiwi of WCW, and he'd come out in the very flamboyant, silky, button-down short sleeve shirts, and he'd have his hair like spiked up or whatever. It's like I knew I recognized him, and it just wasn't ringing a bell. And now I'm watching even more of them, and of course, then there was God, who was the other guy? Oh, Lenny. I remember Lenny. Wasn't Lenny part of like Raven's flock or something? Something. I forget. Trent's probably hanging out with Susie. Susie? Who's Susie? Kiwi. Okay, I thought it was Kiwi. I'd have to look it up. You're probably right. Don't tell Rich. So yeah, very controversial. And yet for back in that time, much more accepted. Things are very different. Everybody's got 10 different opinions on the LGBTQ stuff. Here we go. Bringing him back. 3-2. Boom. There he is.
Sorry, guys. I'm sorry. Amateur move, Jay. Didn't plug in the computer.
It's okay. I was just talking about how controversial, especially for the big point I made was where they were down south. That's practically the Bible Belt,
Yeah.
And how they try to maybe warm the crowd over, a little bit to this was say, oh, if Joe Gertner's with it, okay with it, then maybe we could be, because otherwise these guys wouldn't even make it out of the building alive, I would think.
Keep in mind for the time you're in, we're in 2002 is not that long ago, but it was still very taboo. Gay men was like, oh shit. Now it's so common. But at the time, man, I mean, like Billy and Chuck was after this, that whole thing. I mean, it was, this was so influencing for Billy and Chuck later on, but it was still very, very, especially like you said in the Bible Belt, Alabama. Forget it.
Yeah,
forget it. You're in a place where this is like, these guys were, you're almost scared for them, But luckily, there wasn't. I did not notice that much negative heat. People weren't dropping a lot too much negativity. But the best thing about this was that, so when the Dubs were in the back refusing to do the match because of that, which is another weird thing, right? Like that's weird. I'm sure you talked about while I was.
No, I did not get to the Dubs yet.
Oh, okay.
No, so go ahead.
So in the back, Goldie's interviewing the Dubs, and they're refusing to have the match because I ain't gonna fight their kind, and it's like that's kind of a weird thing to say.
Yeah, I was like,
I'm not gonna fight gay men is basically what that whole thing was, and it's like, can you imagine that now.
Whoa.
If you even did that story now,
that just wow. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Back then they were probably like, oh, all right, whatever.
Different times, different times,
Yeah.
obviously. But man, like that is super controversial for today. Back then, nobody cared. I remember watching it, not even like you didn't care. You're like, okay. But the best thing to come out of it, Jay, was the impromptu teaming of Harris and Storm, first time ever.
The debut.
The debut of America's Most Wanted. They didn't even have a name at the point. They were told Bill Behrens is in the back. He's like, yeah, you guys want to wrestle? Just go out there with your jeans. Just go. And it was the first time you saw.
Couldn't even stretch.
It was the first time you saw Harris and Storm team up. Now, Mike Tenay mentioned that we saw them work each other at an NWA Wildside show, which is what their thing was. Like they had wrestled each other plenty, and they had asked like throw us together, like do something with us. But it was like, they never got to do much. So, but this was the first time you saw them. The first time you got to see what became one of the most legendary tag teams in history.
Yeah, they were one of my favorites. Like becoming a new fan of TNA back in the early mid 2000s.
Yeah,
absolutely one of my favorites. Them and Triple X.
Yes,
classic, man.
And we'll get to all of it. We're the plans to get to all that stuff. But man, I was reminded today what lightning in a bottle these two caught as a team. I mean, what a match!
Yeah,
this was. It wasn't long. It was like 5 minutes. But man, I mean, it was Harris pinned Lenny with a schoolboy to win it. But it was like action packed, back to back. I mean, it was total nonstop action.
Yeah, they jeez.
And hats off to Bruce and Lenny too. They didn't do too bad. That wasn't bad. They did pretty good too. They held up.
No, I mean, for what they did in the ring, they pulled off the typical in like, I'll compare it to like Goldust off the top of my head. Goldust was very flamboyant, very sassy, did controversial things, but he was a badass in the ring and he kicked your ass. Very similar.
Yeah. And Goldust never said he was gay. Remember that? Never once did they come out and say Goldust was gay. He had a chick with him.
He did. He always had a chick with him. He was just always very.
They never said he was gay.
Yeah, whatever.
It was like everybody concluded he was, but they never came out and said he was gay. And that was the interesting part about it. That was the whole point, is that he never told you he was.
Yeah.
But interesting. And listen, what you saw there, if you didn't watch America's Most Wanted, if you only saw James Storm as Beer Money later on, you have to see it. This is the start. This is what made James Storm this started James Storm into the world, man. It was fantastic. It was a fantastic start to what becomes legendary in TNA.
Yeah.
So I loved it, man. Rick Steamboat's out there. He introduces the new NWA TNA heavyweight champion, Ken Shamrock. He's out there talking about being the champion, the importance of the belt. And then James Mitchell, who's on Impact now, Jay.
It is.
Father James Mitchell. Back, a little less hair now. But
a little less raspy, but still badass. Yeah.
Still a badass. He introduces Slash as Shamrock's the next opponent for the following week. But it's kind of a distraction just to get Malice in there to sneak attack Shamrock. Do you know who Slash is, Jay?
No, I'm not familiar with him. Like I saw him last week along with Malice and learned who Malice was. He was the Wall, right? But Slash, yes. No, I'm not familiar with Slash.
Slash, do you remember a tag team called P? And Wolfie D and Jamie Dundee. Do you remember this tag team? They were a Memphis tag team. This is Memphis first, and then they were actually in the original incarnation of the Nation of Domination. PG-13. They were the two white guys in the Nation of Domination. Do you remember that?
No, I do not.
Let's see if the listeners remember. Guys, you remember the PG-13, Wolfie D, Jamie Dundee, who's Bill Dundee's son, by the way. Also brother-in-law of Bobby Eaton. There's a lot of the bullshit I know here, Jay. All the trivia that I got up here.
That's awesome.
But,
that's awesome.
Wolfie D is Slash. He became Slash. Of the Disciples on the Tears. Interesting. Whole different look.
If they were predation of domination, then my guess was, are you talking about WWF?
WWF, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, see, and if that was Attitude Era, then and I was all WCW, then that's why I never saw it and didn't know it, because I was all WCW and I didn't pay attention to WWF until right before the takeover. Oh, I got you. Okay. Yeah. Got it. So that's just a little trivia for you guys. Blaker's asking me, do I remember James Vandenberg? Yes, James Vandenberg of WCW. That was Jim Mitchell, Father Mitchell. That was James Vandenberg. He had the Blood Runs Cold angle with the Mortis and Wrath and Glacier and all that whole storyline. So he was there, man. Now we're at the main event here, Jay. Now up until this point has not been a crazy show, but it's been solid enough. Especially when you get the debut of America's Most Wanted, you got a couple of TV matches out of like Brian Christopher, K Crush, and then the opener with Jeff Jarrett and Scott. So you got these like solid matches you've seen before, guys who've been on TV, experienced guys. But the AMW thing, to me, the AMW thing was the biggest thing that come up of the pre-main event section of this whole show. Yeah. Very important thing to come out of it. But now here we are, Jay. Main event. Let's list. I'm going to let you list this one off. So we've got four guys here, and they call this. This is the debut of the X Division. In fact, they didn't even call it the X Division. They called it for the X Championship. Did it really? It said the X Championship, and I'm like, X Championship. It just sounds so goofy. But that was the inception, and it was the X Division. And now we just what is Ace Austin today? What is Ace Austin today? Started here. Yeah, crazy. That 2002. Title. So we have It's so new, so fresh. AJ Styles, look where he is today. He's one of the top guys in the WWE. It's crazy. He became, in my opinion, one of the greatest of all time. It started absolutely right here. Absolutely, Psicosis, a younger Psicosis, 30-year-old Psicosis, legend, already a legend at that point from WCW. Yes, Low Key. Still going at it, low key. Now he's killing it in MLW, and one of the funniest things in listening to the commentary, he's 4 years young in the business at this point in this match. I'm like, 4 years, and how good he is, unbelievable. It's the equivalent of looking at MJF right now. Okay? The guy who is just ready to go out of the gate. Yeah. And just so damn good for being so young in the business. It's insane. And then you've got the veteran of the four of these guys, Jerry Lynn, 13 years in at this point. At that point, exactly. Now, Jerry Lynn, already legendary status at this point. He'd already been to WCW, ECW, WWF. Like, he'd already done it at this point. Yeah, he's going to have a whole new chapter here. He was just recently light. I believe they said either this episode or last episode, lightweight champion. Light heavyweight champion in WWF. Yeah. So Jerry Lynn is the veteran to kind of be the glue in this match. But this was a match that was ahead of its time, man. And remember, guys, now this match seems like matches that you see, just boom, 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 boom. But in 2002, you were not getting total nonstop action. This was incredible at the time. It was mind-blowing what this match was. It did not stop. And I want to know the time on this. I think this is almost a This was, they went over a half an hour.
30 minutes at least.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because I was looking at what they had. This went right up to the end. And they said, when they said double fatal 4-way, double elimination, I was like, double elimination?
It's a round robin, right.
And so you had to get 2 eliminations to be out of the match.
Yes.
So they just kept going, and there were no breaks. There was like, okay, we're going to give these guys 30 seconds in between match. No, it was just, you get pinned, boom, you're out. Next guy's in 2 seconds later, in your face, don't even have a chance to breathe.
Awesome.
Unfreaking believable. I gotta say, as watching this for the first time, I am admittedly a little ashamed that I've never watched this before.
But how cool.
And this is one that should be talked about more, and that I don't see enough people talking about. This is one word, ridiculously good. Just
really, really good. When they talk about X Division matches, it used to get mentioned more. I'm going to put this out like as a guy who's been there from day one. It used to get mentioned more, but so many X Division matches have happened since then that it kind of got dwarfed. But I'm like, man, this is the one where it started everything, and it is so good. I remember watching it in 2002 and thinking, what the fuck am I looking at? I've never seen anything like this in my life.
You must have been almost falling off your couch, like just.
Me and Dave's going to be on the show one day. I told you about Jay. I want to get him on because we watched every one of these together. We were speechless watching this. I mean, this was like, we didn't really know who AJ Styles was. We didn't, low key, we had seen on some indies in Chicago. So we knew low key was making his rounds. Jerry, we already love. We were in love with Jerry Lynn from ECW. And Psicosis, we already knew from WCW. But this was something else. Like this kid, AJ Styles, like, who the fuck is this guy? And unreal. Let me just run through the eliminations, and then we'll talk about it a little bit. So remember, everybody had to be pinned twice in order to actually be out. So AJ defeated Psicosis with a Styles clash. AJ defeated Low Key after Styles folded up Low Key with a backdrop suplex into a facebuster. Jerry Lynn defeated AJ. Jerry Lynn defeated Psicosis. Jerry Lynn defeated Low Key with all cradle pile drivers. So that's Jerry's signature move. AJ then defeated Jerry 2 straight with the Styles clash and the spiral tap to win the title. So total was like, I got it listed here as 25:56 with everything included. It was over a half hour. But man, it was just something for the ages, man. This match is something that I will never. I'm so glad we watched it today, because like I can't wait to show this to Nurse Nicole because she's never seen this, and I'm like, oh, yeah. You got to see this match because this is what started everything. This is nuts. So
I'm glad this is, as much as we talk about over the last couple years between me being on this podcast and you and I separately on our different podcasts, I'm sure, talking about how the X Division has started out several, events over the years, and this one headlined. This is a great example of, as fun as it is to see them kick it off. Yeah, they really should headline more, honestly.
I think so. I guess I used to get mentioned a lot more at one time, and they've gone to other matches. But man, to me, this is the quintessential. Also, by the way, I think Low Key legitimately wanted to kill AJ Styles. He looked like he was out for fucking blood in this match. Like he wanted to murder everybody.
But he's still almost 20 years later still has that same, I'm gonna kill you and rip your spine out of your back and shove it up your ass. He still has that look on his face. It's crazy.
He's nuts. He hits so hard. Insane. Keep in mind, a lot of these guys at the time, Jay, were also doing Ring of Honor, which had started up just 2 months prior. Remember, Ring of Honor predates TNA by about 2 months. And a lot of these guys were doing both. So if you watch parallel Ring of Honor, and Ring of Honor didn't have TV.
And that was one of the controversial things between a lot of what become main guys in TNA and CM Punk. because CM Punk was like, nah, I'm going to stay over here in Ring of Honor and stay loyal to them, while a lot of them left to go to TNA and stayed on TNA. It's interesting.
It was an interesting time, but Ring of Honor was also around. So there was a lot going on, man. There was a lot between the two companies going on. So there's so much content out there of these guys' early careers. Like what you see now for some of these guys, they're already 20 years older. Imagine these guys 20 years ago. This is nuts.
Yeah.
I mean, you think AJ is good now? Imagine 20 years ago. Crazy shit. Jerry Lynn was still active at the time. I mean, unreal. But what a phenomenal match. I think, like I said, the show had a couple of high points, but this to me was so good as a main event that I didn't care about the Cheex stuff. You know, I like whatever, you know, that's fine. But highlights for me are AMW's, you know, coming together, obviously, and then and this are the two biggest things for me out of the show. What about you, Jay?
Oh yeah, I mean, seeing Chris Harris and James Storm together for the first time, just like, oh, this is their debut. It's like, you know, and then watching them, how good they were against the Rainbow Express. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. And then I'll just reiterate like what I said to start this review. It's like, you know, it didn't start out not knocking Jarrett and Scott Hall. You know, that was decent. It was short but sweet.
Short TV match, you know, standard.
And it was good to start out with some big names. It kept the crowd invested, and then they had a couple. You know, it went downhill a little. It went from Cheex to, you know, all the stuff with the little twerp Hermie Sadler. You know, like, and then you know what was, I'm sure a lot more entertaining to many with the lingerie battle royal. And I'm like, okay, I you know, I could have passed on that one. You know, as a modern fan, I was like, okay, seriously, you know, that was horrible. You know, for what it's worth, it was, you know, it gave me a couple chuckles, but I was like, oh, and then it really got better watching Apollo. I loved him, the tag team action, and then ending with the X Division double elimination fatal four-way. That's a mouthful.
That's a lot. That's a lot going on.
This was just I'm glad it ended the way it did, because it was a little choppy throughout, but overall, damn, a very fun episode.
Overall, very good. I'm so happy to have you watching this for the first time and being along with you while you do, because that, to me rewatching them and remembering, and you watching them for the first time and seeing like what it was then is I think that's what makes this the most fun. Because a lot of stuff I forgot, but as I'm watching it, I'm like, oh, I do remember that feeling I had, you know, as I watched it. So,
and seeing a few of these faces, like I remember how much I loved, because this is back when I was really playing a lot of the early SmackDown versus Raw games. It wasn't called that. It was shit. I had it on PS2, but you know, those early wrestling, that early series of wrestling games, and I would put all these guys. I would put Apollo and Jeff Jarrett and Scott. I would put a bunch of them. Now, granted, this is a couple of years down the line, but still, you know, same core people.
Sure.
I put you know, Chris Harris, James Storm, in Triple X, all those guys in my video game, and then I'm remembering how much I loved this brand back then.
Yeah, it was just a ton of fun, man. Ton of fun. I'm glad you guys are with us watching these two. Remember, guys, Impact Plus app, you can get it on there. That's how we're watching them. They're all on there.
Yes.
And $8 a month, or get your free 30-day trial. Watch these with us. Get the 30-day trial if you're not sure about paying for it. Watch a shit ton of them. Be ready with us. We're gonna keep going week to week. Jay, I'm going to be off work from the 21st through the 2nd. I got time to watch even more. We could even double up during that stretch. Let's get a bunch in the can. I want to tell the listeners, guys, watch episode 3, 4, and 5. Be ready with us, because we're going to blast them out. We're going to keep, this is a thing we're going to do. Yeah. We are doing this on the OG channel, and so we're going to keep going. This is a lot of fun for me too. And it's an easy watch, Jay. 2 hours. You know, they're not bad.
It's not bad. It's
not bad at all.
Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of people nowadays would fast forward through a lot of this, but me watching this for the first time, I'm like, oh, I don't want to miss this. Good or bad, I'm not going to miss this.
Exactly. The fun is watching it just as it happened.
Yeah.
And like as we're timepiecing it, we're following along the storyline. Like next week, we know there's a title shot. Next week, we know there's a tag team title shot, and they're going to be in this. The next one is the debut of the Asylum. Now they're going to the Nashville Asylum, which is the legendary Asylum. You know, that's where that.
Okay. Yeah.
That's where that era starts.
Yeah. So we got K Crush and Jarrett versus Brian Christopher and Scott Hall. Kind of an odd pairing of sorts, but still the bigger names in the brand at the time. Then they got the tag team tournament. They're going to name new NWA TNA tag champs. I can't wait to see who's in that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if the teams that
I
I mentioned are going to be a part of that. That I don't know. And then we've got Ken Shamrock's first title defense against Malice. Is it Malice or Slash? Because he brought out Slash, and then he was attacked by Malice.
Right, and that was the weird thing. I was like, he brought Slash, but he was attacked by Malice, and I thought I heard Tenay say, "Well, it's going to be Malice." So I'm not sure. We'll find out. Let's just go in raw. Let's go and surprise ourselves and watch it, and just see what happens.
It's one of the two. We know this.
One of the two. But that's episode number 2, guys. Jay, let's get some plugs. We hit exactly the time. I don't. Guys, our goal was to not go more than an hour on these. We don't want to keep these too long because these are recaps. These are throwbacks. Yeah. They're fun, quick little things. We enjoy you guys being on this. I hope you guys are having fun too, because we are really having fun doing this. Jay, I think I'd speak for you on that too. I think we're having a good time.
Oh, absolutely, man. Yeah, I mean, I think when we talked about doing other, projects together, this is one of the first things we mentioned.
Yes,
but we weren't sure how we were going to do this. And then, but I also in the back of my head was like, how fun is this really going to be? But no, I really am enjoying this. I really am.
A lot of friends of mine already have asked me, hey, can I come on this? Because I watched all those shows. Basil wants to come on here. My buddy referee Nate Speckman, he's a referee he's done some Impact. He refereed on No Surrender. He wants to come on. He's been watching along with us.
Oh, absolutely.
And he's like, I'd like to come on.
Bring some people on once in a while. Yeah, I mean, I'd say, because I know this is a hectic time of year. I'd say maybe after the holidays.
After the holiday, for sure.
Schedules lighten up a little bit. We'll bring some people on here. Absolutely.
Absolutely. We're going to bring, because these are throwbacks. And if you watch them, we want to get you guys on too. So those are fun. So cool, man. Jay, let's get some plugs. Where can people find you?
You can find me over on that other little podcast called Smash This Podcast on YouTube. Smash This Podcast also is on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Me personally, I am at Jaybone5150 on Twitter. That's JAYBONE 5150.
Cool. Guys, you can find me at Vanilla Joke and Hemi Music and Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Type that in. Comes right up on both. You can find the show at We Talk Impact on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Just type in We Talk Impact. We come right up. Add us on all the social medias. Connect. We are 8 away from 1,000 followers on Twitter. So, guys, share it around. Twitter's almost at 1,000 followers. Thank you all for that, because that's pretty awesome.
I've been trying to get it up there, and it's like slowly.
It's getting there.
You never know. Sometimes you get a bunch, and sometimes it's a trickle effect. Same thing on YouTube,
Yeah, and we'll get there. A lot of new subs on this channel, guys. Thank you for that. Remember, guys, this podcast, even including the throwbacks, are available wherever podcasts are found: Apple, iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, and Spotify, along with YouTube on the OG Total Nonstop Impact channel. Rate, review, subscribe. Guys, I want to know real quick for everybody's in the room, who is subbed to us on any of those podcast apps, iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud. If you are subscribed to us there, let me know right now. I'm really curious out of the group that's in here today. But if you are on there, guys, remember to rate, review, subscribe. Definitely connect with us on all there. If you want to support the show, share it around. share what we do. Let us know. Let Impact Wrestling know what we're doing, guys. You gotta say something, Jay?
I want to apologize. When we after we did the first episode last week, I accidentally uploaded the last Impact Wrestling episode. I couldn't figure out why the timings were exactly the same when I re-uploaded them, and so we fixed it on SoundCloud, but that did not translate, I'm assuming, to the other audio format. So I apologize. I screwed that up. So
well, we pulled it. It should be okay on all the other formats too, so that should be fine.
Yeah, it probably just took a while to kick in, I'm guessing. I don't know.
Yeah, once we caught it maybe about an hour and a half, about 2 hours in.
Yeah,
that the wrong one was up. So like my initial download was the wrong one, but once we replaced it, we were good to go. So apologize about that, guys. I also want to give a shout out to Mike Freeland again of the Front Row Material podcast with Jerry Lynn, who we talked about today, and Mikey Whipwreck, always giving us a shout, a lot of love. I also want to give, and I'm going to mention it here, but I'm also going to mention on the main show too. I want to give a shout out to Michael Elgin and Ethan Page for putting us over big time. I ran into them on Friday. They really put the show over, and I thank them for constantly plugging us. So I appreciate it to you guys. Going to mention that again on the main show later this week, along with the cool story I have. Nurse Nicole and I had an interesting run-in this weekend. Going to talk about it on the main show. I'm going to save it. Leave a little teaser for you guys. But Jay, I think that's going to do it for me. I think got all the plugs in, guys. If you need anything from us, tweet us. Let us know how we did. But definitely let Impact Wrestling know that we are doing this. We're promoting the Impact Plus app. We are putting that out there. Tag Impact Plus, tag Impact Wrestling. Let them know the show exists. Let them know that you liked it. Because I know the old stuff has value with old school fans. That's what we're here to do. Let them know. Let us know. We appreciate it, guys. Jay, anything else?
Just answering this question real quick. Lakers fan asking if I was going to review the latest Twitch special like I did No Surrender. I might try. The days are, skipping ahead. I basically haven't reviewed anything in a little over a week on my Smash This podcast. I just had a rough several days in a row, but I've been, trying to amp myself up for these specifically. I might just take the rest of the year off on Smash This podcast. I haven't made a decision yet. I will in the next few days, but we're getting closer to Christmas. It's the holidays. So I will definitely be on here, but STP might come back in the new year. Who knows?
I'm going to put something out there, Jay, real quick, just the listeners in here. I'm going to have a bunch of time off coming up. I would like to talk about No Surrender and Motown Showdown. If we can get a little group show together, if any of the guys in here, Akeem, JV, Sid, Eric, anybody wants to get, we're going to look into how many people we can get into the StreamYard at once. Maybe we can do a big group talk about those two specials or something. Or we do a year end or something. We'll see.
I think I've seen max 5 or 6. I've seen a few other podcasts use several at once, but I think 5 or 6 is the max.
Okay, let's see. Maybe we can. If you guys are
quote me on that, we'll look into it.
We'll look into it. Maybe we'll do those specials as kind of a bonus during that quiet holiday week or something. Because there'll be no live Impact. They're doing a best of special anyway, so not much to review on the weekly. We'll probably do the throwback maybe, but if we want to fill it with something, we'll do those too. We'll do it on the OG or maybe we'll do it on the lounge. So we'll look into it, guys. But Jay, that's going to do it for me. We appreciate it, guys. Thank you for hanging out with us on the TNI Throwback. We'll be back next week with episode number 3, NWA TNA number 3, crowning the tag team champions. That'll be the focus of the one. Guys, thank you very much for hanging. We'll talk to you later this week on the Total Nonstop Impact weekly review after Thursday. Thanks, guys.
See ya.